Alright, so we're back at it again one more time today, and this time we are going to be using P5js. So this is the processing language. It's kind of like a visual language. It was originally in Java, but it got ported to JavaScript, and we're going to be using the JavaScript version today. So we have here is where you can kind of see my mouse right now. This is our editor window. This has all of our code. And off there to the right is where we're going to end up seeing our preview. So if I run this quick, you can see that that box there is going to be where our code runs. Now, for this one today, we're going to be making a self-portrait, and we're not going to need the draw function. So what we're actually going to do is we're just going to start by getting rid of that entirely. And I still want a background though. So I'm going to say background. Ooh, if I can spell, good start. Okay, so, and we're just going to make it just kind of a little bit off-white. 255 would be white and 0 would be black. And so we're just doing it grayscale, just close to white for right now. And what we're going to do is we're going to make a cool little self-portrait. So we're going to start this off. And there's a whole bunch of basically shapes that you can find online. So the processing JS has a whole bunch of 2D primitive shapes built into it, and you can find all of those. I'm just going to kind of drag it in here on the processing. So it's p5js.org/reference. You can also kind of like Google it there. And it has a whole bunch of stuff that you can use on there. So all of the functions and shapes and stuff that I'm going to be using in this video, you can find there. Okay, let's get started because we don't want to take up too much time here. So we're going to start off with a body shape. So we're going to go 150, 150, 50, and 130. I did all these numbers beforehand just so I could do this quickly. So we kind of have like a generalized body shape there. And this is also a really good time to start teaching your kids about coding. Good practices, coding practices. The about commenting is what I meant. So we're going to say that we're going to do this body, and you can see there it's the 2 slashes does a comment. That's pretty standard. Next, let's do a head. So we're going to start with an ellipse. An ellipse is just a circle. And we are going to do 175, 125, 50, and 70. Okay, great. Yeah, and you can see we have a nice little head going on there. Okay, let's continue down, and let's start doing some legs. So let's start with the left leg. Okay, yeah, so for this one, I'm going to show 2 different ways of drawing shapes on the legs. The first one is going to be the harder one. It's going to use rotation, but it is probably the more useful one to learn. But the easy one for the kids at this stage, I think, is going to be the begin shape with the vertex. And I'll show both of these in a minute, and we'll show why it's maybe a little bit more easy or difficult. So actually, I'm going to start with the right leg first, and I'm going to use the begin shape first, because let's start with the easy one. So we're going to have begin shape, and this is just a way of making a custom shape. And so we're going to say vertex at 190, 200, and then we're going to just copy this a bunch of times because we don't like typing. Haha, I would encourage your kids to copy and paste a bunch of stuff too, because the thing that'll slow you down most is the amount of time that they take to type. And so we're going to say end shape at the end here, and we're going to say close. And if you have questions about any of the specific syntax I'm using, go and look at the reference. But this is basically a way of specifying a whole bunch of points. You can basically make a custom shape. Each of the vertexes is like 1 point on that shape, and at the end you just close it all together. So we're going to go and we say 200, and what did I have here? 390, and then we had 220. It looks so funny right now. 220 and 385. Right, and then finally here I had 210 and 200. Why does that not look at all like what I wanted? Oh, because this shouldn't be 120. This should be 200. That still didn't work. What am I doing wrong? 200. Oh, I just cannot read numbers. 200 and 280. There we go. That's what our leg should look like. Alright, so we saw that the begin shape can get a little bit confusing with the number of vertex, but I think this is a really good opportunity for the kids to get comfortable with the way that the X and Y axis work in processing. You may be looking at this and be like a little bit confused, because actually in computer graphics, the Y value, or the origin of the graph you're working on, starts in the top left corner, and X goes upward to the right, kind of here as you're used to, but Y increases downward. It's a little bit weird. So it's actually reversed, flipped upside down as to what you'd normally be used to. So just let the kids know about that. And I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to start copying and pasting in shapes so that I don't take too long here when I get to some of the other ones. But I do want to quickly go through how I did the left leg here. So the left leg, I actually did this using pushing and popping matrices and then translating and rotating. So the way that processing works for rotating things is it actually rotates around the origin point. So if you rotate, like, yeah, you know what, I can actually show you. So if I just say rotate, and then I say like pi. Oh, that did not work as expected. So this is interesting. This is not going how I expected to go. I was expecting something like interesting to happen as I did this, and it's not at all. So, oh, you know what? I'm so dumb. It's because it needs to go before stuff. So if I do that, then I found it. What do you want? Oh, right. So the leg isn't even on the screen right now. If I just rotate by like 1 degree, you will see it. Nope, this is just a gigantic failure of an example. Okay, there we go. So even if I rotated like this tiny amount, the leg, because it's going from the origin point here, and I rotated the entire thing by, wow, 0.1 degrees, it was less than I was expecting. The leg went through it all. So that's not what we really want at all, because we kind of want to rotate the leg around maybe like its top left corner. And so to do this, sorry, that was a bit of a digression there. To do this, we actually have to do something interesting, which is going to be, we are going to make a new matrix and then change the origin point of that. So when you do that is you say push, and push just makes basically a new grid system that you can like move it around without affecting what you've already put down there. And we say translate, and so we're going to translate it to the point where we want the leg to start, which is going to be 140 and 280. And then, oh my goodness, because I was using degrees, not radians. Okay, so I figured out my mistake. So we're going to say rotate, and we're going to say radians of 10. So this is actually doing is it's rotating it by 10 degrees. Because what we can do is rotate actually takes in radians. And this is where I even confused myself. It's probably, if you're going to do this with the kids, it's probably best to get them to use degrees instead, because that's probably what they can visualize. If you have some really keener kids, they can go and look up a unit circle and do it, but otherwise you can convert degrees into radians using this little radians function. And what I was showing you up there before is I was trying to convert degrees, or I was trying to like convert radians like back into degrees, back into radians. I was doing it backwards, and that's why I was getting really weird values. That makes more sense now. Okay, what we're going to do is now we're just going to draw a simple rectangle, and we're going to do it now at the origin point, remember, because we translated things. And then we're going to say rectangle 0, 0, 30, and 100. And then this is the important thing, is at the end we have to pop the matrix. This resets the matrix to where it was before. And you can see now we have a rectangle that's been rotated by 10 degrees, right? It's been rotated clockwise by about 10 degrees. And it looks really funny because it's not like the same shape or size as the other one because I drew them two different ways. But you can teach kids both ways, and they can choose which ones they want. The rotation is probably more useful for them long term, and like if we're doing animations later on, it's probably more useful. But definitely the begin and end shape is kind of easier to explain. So that's up to you as an instructor which one you want to do. I'll leave that up to you. So now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to start kind of copying and pasting in a couple of things. So I'm just going to copy and paste in my left arm and my right arm so that we don't spend a bunch of time doing that. So you can see I just did the vertex again with the shape, right? And then we can go back up to the head, right? So the head, I added in some eyes for myself, right? So head, we can say eyes as kind of like a subheading in head. There we go, we make some eyes, right? We can make a nose and a mouth as well, so I'm going to copy those in again. Nose and mouth, right? And oh, look at that, now we're turning into a beautiful, beautiful piece of art. You can see this is just fantastic. And ooh, one thing that we cannot forget, because this is a self-portrait, right, is something very important to me, is we need to remember the man bun. There we go. That's on top. And finally what we can start doing is we can start adding a little bit of color to our sketch. So the way that color works in processing is you actually fill in the shapes that you have. Right? So if what I'm doing here, let's get the other one up here to get my color correctly. Okay, yeah, so I just experimented with them. So my body, I always wear around a blue hoodie, or I do a lot. So what I can say is I say fill my shape with, and this is an RGB color value. So I'm going to say 0 red, and maybe 100 green, and 200 blue is what I did. Right? And now you can see it turned me all blue. So what we have to do is after we're done the shape that we want, we have to reset the fill value. And I'm just going to reset it to white. But let's go through and let's add just like a little bit more color to this because I think it can be kind of fun to do that. So what I did here is for my left and right legs, kind of before I make the left leg, right, I'm going to fill just kind of like a gray color, just for like some gray pants, right? Oh, that's fun. Oh, one second. Let's bring that up before the right leg. There we go. So now everything is, but let's not make my arms gray as well. So let's go underneath our left leg and reset it to 255. And what else are we missing? Ah, yes, we have some eyes that we didn't finish because right now they're just kind of blank and soulless and staring into you, and it's horrifying. So what we're going to do is under eyes, I'm going to add in some pupils, and I made them brown, so let's make sure that we reset afterwards. And then also for the man bun, I'm going to set it to my hair's brown. I'm going to set it to the same brown. Maybe it's not the same brown as my eyes, but I'm getting lazy at this point, so this is what I'm going to put in. And then we're going to say 255. And look at that. I think we're going to call it there. You can kind of get the point of what's going on. If you want, you could like add more hair, or you could try adding a beard, although that might be difficult. You can like change around colors of arms, add in hands, shoes, all sorts of things. Hopefully this is kind of just a time for the kids to start getting used to the interface, getting this idea that they have to type things in order. I would say get them to copy and paste lots. The reference is great. They can copy and paste literally right from there. Um, and yeah, the only other concern I have about this one is maybe just kind of watch the kids and make sure they're not being like mean to each other, and make sure that each person is drawing their own, like in control of their own portrait, and they don't have like because you're going to be doing pair programming, so make sure that the other person just isn't like taking over and like drawing dumb stuff on somebody and being mean. Hopefully that won't be an issue, but it might be something just to like look out for. Other than that, it should be a pretty straightforward and fun activity. There's not a lot of moving parts, and it's pretty hard to mess up. So it should be lots of fun. And thanks for listening.